effect it'll absolutely have on the YouTube ecosystem, where Let's Plays will be pumped out the wazoo, because there is a proof of concept right now from VO3 that it can very closely mimic real Minecraft and Fortnite Let's Plays with a face cam, a YouTuber, and the gameplay. I won't just regurgitate more examples of that. There are plenty to choose from here, the most notorious being that red-shirted cartoon character on ketamine right there in front of the Minecraft gameplay. There are some that are even more convincing that don't look like they're hitting a K-hole really hard. Point is, it's very good at pumping out fake Let's Plays. It's also very good at pumping out other kinds of popular YouTube content like those street interviews.
What's one move with AI that makes haters go crazy every time?
Spring's here and London's buzzing again. From outdoor festivals to packed pubs, Free now makes getting around easy with fast, reliable and always on time. Plus our black cabs skip the traffic with bus lane access. Download Free now.
Y'all gotta give them that. This is wild. It's over. We are cooked on that thread. You get me?
This genre of content is so fucking cringe that this AI video feels just about as natural and organic as the real flesh, blood, and cringe that does this. Like, I swear to God, the people that do those videos are always like the exact same. What is your body count? And it feels almost as robotic as this AI video. So this one is actually looking to have people putting fries in the bag right now from that genre of content. Like, this is the wooden stake to the vampire's heart, because they can pump these street interviews out endlessly. And that and plenty more. Really, they can make endless YouTube content and flood the platform. And like I said, it's not perfect. You can still tell something is awry. It's still a bit eerie, but it's good enough that I think a large number of people will be none the wiser. And also, a large number of people aren't even paying that much attention to the videos they put on in the first place. So this will absolutely encapsulate them. It's just getting very concerning. But the one thing AI will never be able to emulate or replace is good hygiene. Motherfuckers out there smelling like trash, practicing horrible hygiene, it's time to fix that with our soap. Use Cheeky.com for the best soap ever made. I wanted to briefly mention that because we're doing a big Memorial Day sale that we're running until Monday, where if you use code MOIST, it's 20% off everything. So now's the perfect time to really upgrade your hygiene. Anyway though, I didn't want to just focus on the YouTube side of things when it comes to this technology again. That's what I did earlier today. Instead, I want to talk about it in some other areas, most notably in commercial productions. So many of you know, commercials use actors and they have sets and they have a budget and they produce commercials to advertise products, you know, the whole shebang. I don't need to explain to you how that shit works. I don't need to fucking spoon feed you that with the here comes the airplane on commercials. Point is, commercials have always had humans as a part of selling the product. But VO3 is currently just out of the box almost good enough to fully replace that. And there is a producer that made a little proof of concept showcasing its capabilities even this early on.
I tried everything for my depression. Nothing worked.
Every day felt heavy. I felt trapped.
Then I tried Puppermin.
Our prescription helps your body secrete a special pheromone that attracts puppies.
I took the pill before bed, and when I woke up, there he was, the love of my life.
The pill does not target depression directly, but we've found that it's really difficult to be depressed when cute dogs show up at your doorstep.
Now, obviously, the video itself is a joke, but the concept is not. As he mentions in that tweet, he claims that he used to spend like $500,000 making pharmaceutical commercials. Meanwhile, he was able to generate this minute 16-second ad for $500 on VO in less than a day. Do you know how appealing that is to businesses, corporations that are constantly looking for ways to shave some doubloons off their bottom line and, you know, cut corners and save money? This is like a wet dream to them, because why would they hire tons of, you know, contractors, as well as booking a location and setting aside shooting dates, editing, all of that, the whole kit and caboodle, when instead they could just hire one talentless goober to type some prompts into VO3 and generate something that's good enough for people to see and maybe get interested in the product. Like, it's just so cheap. Like, it is like 1/1,000,000th of the price of a normal commercial, and it's not like this takes a skilled laborer. Whereas doing commercials, that's a whole industry of specialized professionals. That's expensive. And you also have to hire actors, whereas this cuts out everyone except for one guy, and anybody can do that job. No matter what kind of dogshit delusional propaganda the self-proclaimed prompt engineers try and shove down your throat, this is a very easy thing to do for anybody at all with access to it. So this is going to be an extremely appealing option for these companies because the only risk is a reputational hit where people criticize them for using AI in their advertisements. But because this technology is becoming more and more normalized, more and more people are being accepting of it anyway, so they can save a ton of money and eventually people will stop caring, and they know that. They're banking on that. So as the guy in the tweet here says, as PJ says, why would they be spending this kind of money when instead they can spend like $500 and still generate a commercial that's good enough? And not only that, they can generate a new commercial every day with this. So they can have an entire marketing campaign for a fraction of the cost and 20 times the output. It's just, that is going to be where these greedy corporations go. And like I said, this is VO3 just out of the box. So here's another example from someone named REK, just showcasing how good the sound is here in terms of like lip syncing and characters talking, all completely generated through VO, nothing added.
We can talk.
No more silence.
Yes, we can talk.
We can talk.
We can talk.
We can talk with accents.
Oh, I think that would be marvelous, Fabio.
Yes, it is very fun. But
Yes, it is very good.
It's very fun.
I can talk.
Yes.
We can talk.
Yes.
You know. We can talk.
We can talk.
We can talk.
Yes.
We can talk. No.
We can talk as cartoons.
This is amazing.
Imagine all the narrative possibilities.
And imagine all of the people that no longer will be able to work in any of these industries at all because no corporations are going to hire people when instead they can just generate the content. That's the actual future and the hard pill that a lot of these AI enthusiasts refuse to swallow. I keep seeing this argument of like, now art is accessible to everyone. You stupid troglodyte, it always has been if you were creative enough and had the drive to. It's the same thing with like AI art, how like a lot of people claim AI has given people, everyone the ability to be an artist. That's always been in your possibilities, like that's always been on the table. If you just had the drive, pick up a fucking pencil and you could become an artist if you learn. This just does it all for you. The AI in its current state can be used as a tool by real artists and real filmmakers, 100%. I have seen like some positive usages there for some things, but the bulk of this will be from corporations looking to save money by just not hiring people at all and just cutting them out. Using AI to generate art is not a tool. Like you cannot compare this to like a tablet or like digital art that a lot of people try and compare these apples to oranges. It's just delusional cope because you can't grab a tablet and a stylus and set them down and say, draw James Corden fighting Vegeta. Because nothing's going to happen. It's not just going to have like a fucking mind of its own and just draw it for you. It's not the goddamn Disney Channel bringing this shit to life with magic. You would still have to grab that stylus and draw James Corden fighting Vegeta. Whereas using these AI programs, if you tell it, draw James Corden fighting Vegeta, it will. It does it for you. You don't do anything. It's not a tool. It just does what you tell it to do. It'd be like me calling myself a pilot because I flew on a plane to Dallas once. I may not have been behind the controls, but I said I wanted to go to Dallas, so I got on the plane and the plane took me to Dallas like I said. I guess I must be a pilot. So it's a terrible comparison, and what it's going to be used for is replacing people. That's why so much money keeps getting funneled into it constantly. Because as PJ mentioned, why are you going to hire people for commercials or short videos or anything like that when instead you can generate infinite number of them for an infinitely lower cost? Another thing PJ mentioned that I think he's right on the money with. He said, I've been a professional filmmaker for 15 years and it's getting very difficult to tell if this is fake. And then he played another AI generated video that's also pretty impressive. And then he said, in what world is not all media generated within 2 years? Unfortunately, I think he's pretty close to the money here. I don't think it's going to be all media. I think that's a little exaggeratory. But I think in the next 2 years, we're going to see a huge shift in the amount of AI content where on specific places like YouTube and Twitter, a ton, maybe even the majority of the content you consume is non-human. It's artificial. and that shit sucks. It's going to get to a point where the amount of artificial content drowns out the real human being driven content. Like, it's going to be a novelty to find like an actual person behind videos or whatever online. There was already that report that I've mentioned numerous times here about how almost half of the internet now is actually bots. Like, there is a 50-50 shot the person you're interacting with online is not a person at all, but instead a bot. It's already out of control, and now with this technology getting so good, it's only going to continue to spiral the problem more and more out of control. So it's hard for me not to get like lost in this rabbit hole because it is so fascinating. This is a crucial moment in human history we are living through right now. Legitimately, like that is not exaggeratory to say. This is that big. So I wanted to talk about it. Anyway, that's really about it. See ya.
At Vodafone.
Oh my goodness, we haven't talked about the VPN firm that canceled lifetime subscriptions because, and I quote, they didn't know about them. This is amazing. Sources Ars Technica. My jaw just about hit the floor when I was reading this. In March of this year, VPN secure customers began complaining online about lifetime subscriptions no longer working. Lifetime subscription holders then began receiving emails that stated lifetime deal accounts had been deactivated as of April 28th. An email posted on Reddit notes that VPN Secure has been acquired by new ownership in 2023 in an asset-only deal. So this new owner acquired the technology, domain, and customer database, but not the liabilities. That is a direct quote. What?
Glorious.
The new ownership claims that the previous owner did not disclose that thousands of LTDs, or lifetime deals, had been sold through platforms like Stack Social, and they stated that they only discovered the lifetime deal accounts months later after finding that their resources were being strained by LTD customers who provided no sustaining income to the service.
With Virgin Media, get smooth, lightning fast M125 Visit virginmedia.com.
As a third-year student, I'll be starting to apply for internships, which
Too bad! When you acquire a company, you get... Okay, hold on. VPN Secure sent out an additional email this week reiterating that the acquisition was an asset-only deal. Don't you understand? It was an asset-only deal. And after we reviewed 6 to 12 months of VPN Secure's previous financials before the purchase, the listing, profit and loss statements, and communications never mentioned these lifetime deals. Yeah, but you see the P&L. If you see the profit and loss, then what are we even talking about here?
If it was an asset-only deal, it should have quite literally canceled all subscriptions.
Well, yeah. Then they should have no.
Subscriptions.
You can't have it both ways. You can't have the monthly subscriptions, but not the lifetime. You don't get to pick which customers you acquired. VPN Secure has offered affected users discounted new subscriptions of $1.87 a month instead of $9.95, $19 for a year instead of $80, or $55 for 3 years instead of $107 until the end of May. Here's a suggestion. How about you not buy anything from a company that treats you so disrespectfully? There's an idea. And I'm not even going to poison this segment by mentioning another VPN that you could sign up for, because that is not the point right now. The point right now is don't give them a dime. Yeah. Not 1 penny. If you weren't worth it to them as a customer, who, by the way, already paid for the service, then you aren't worth it to them as a customer. Period. That's how this works. Since March, there have apparently been 20 pages of 1-star reviews on Trustpilot, and VPN Secure is responding on Trustpilot, acknowledging it could have communicated better with customers. No! No, what you could have done is not renege on a deal.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to communicate this better. I think I'm going to be pissed anyways. And it also says, like, despite not assuming the previous company's contracts or payments. Like, that doesn't sound right. They had the monthlies, right?
As far as I know.
Yeah,
the new
so
ownership
that's
says they kept the lifetime accounts active for 2 years as a gesture of goodwill. No, they didn't notice
it's 'cause
it.
you didn't know.
They made it very clear they didn't notice it. And then their third message claims the new owners didn't gain access to the customer database for months after the acquisition. Dude, I'm sorry. I just don't feel bad for you. I'm sorry. There is absolutely no right answer here, I'm afraid.
I hope
other
the
than
incredibly low cost of VPN users was worth the 20 pages and hopefully and probably more 1-star reviews you're having now. Idiots.
Who's F1 says, Luke, would you sue the company if you had a lifetime sub?
Ugh.
Come on, we all know the answer.
No.
Yeah.
It's so much work, and it's probably so expensive.
Yeah, basically. And it's like, I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily consider, is that it's really easy to make a video about how you're suing someone or whatever. Actually following through on it, like to the point where there's an actual judgment and or settlement of some sort. That's like it's a ton of work and it's boring. And no one's interested in it. It's not content anymore. Only the initial announcement, the big bombshell is content. Nothing else is content. So it's just gonna die. And it's just and it's like you gotta weigh the cost benefit, right? Like, what is Luke owed? Dozens of dollars. What's it going to cost to have even an exploratory call with a lawyer? Come on.
Yeah, if somebody already set up a class action lawsuit, people are asking if I would join that, and it's like, even then, man, like, what am I going to get from it? Like, if I'm going to click one button, I don't know. Sure.
I don't know.
I think honestly the biggest impact thing that I could do is to obviously never bring them my business again, go somewhere else, leave that 1-star review, and try to get as many other people to do the same. Because
what if you never had to prospect again?
If you've been paying attention to the indie game scene the past few years, it would be hard to miss the growing trend of graphics emulating the aesthetics of the PlayStation 1 era of games. A combination of several unique quirks of the PS1 GPU caused these games to have a dreamy, liminal, or uneasy appearance, which is very effective at inducing a powerful nostalgic feeling for minimal computational investment due to the old age of the techniques. So what were these quirks of the PS1 GPU? How are games today replicating that functionality on modern hardware? Is it worth the effort to try and make a game in this style? All this and more in today's video, where we make our own PlayStation 1 style scene. Released in 1994, the PlayStation 1 is the progenitor of many beloved series today, such as Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Silent Hill, Persona, Bubsy 3D, and Resident Evil. When it comes to nostalgia baiting, it is one of these that you're probably going to try and emulate, so today we will analyze Silent Hill and try to deconstruct its visual components. Let's start by setting a scene. When I need some inspiration, I open my folder of random environment photos, which are all suspiciously similar now that I look at them. This image inspired me the most. I really like the bridge as a centerpiece of a dark, snowy environment, which would take full advantage of the foggy effects present in Silent Hill. I opened up Blender, modeled a bridge, sculpted some terrain, and used a flat plane intersecting with the terrain to represent the river for now. After importing my models into Godot, we have a blank scene ready to apply our PS1 effects to. The first thing I would like to do is apply some textures to our models to get some color and details. So how did the PlayStation 1 handle textures? Given its hardware from the 90s, the PS1 has some significant memory limitations, making high-resolution textures an impossibility. The PS1 comes with a whopping 1 megabyte of VRAM, meaning all of the space available could be contained in a single 1024 by 512 16-bit texture. This is not a lot of space, and even worse, the texture presented to the screen so we can actually see the game after it's rendered takes up some of this space as well. The largest texture the PS1 could write to is 640 by 480, making that the highest resolution a PS1 game could technically be rendered at. In practice, PS1 games would divide this texture into two, making use of a double buffer setup such that one texture is presented to the screen while the other is rendered to, preventing any flickering from GPU latency and significantly improving the frame rate because rendering at quarter resolution is always much faster. From my research, the actual target resolution of PS1 games varied greatly. Spyro is rendered at 297 by 217, Silent Hill is rendered at 319 by 223, and Metal Gear Solid is rendered at 320 by 200. So to be historically accurate, any target resolution less than 320 by 240 is fine, but it is 2025, and you could technically do 640 by 480 if you really wanted to. Since we're copying Silent Hill today, I'll be rendering at 319 by 223. Given the implicit double buffer setup that we'd technically be using if this were the 90s, leaves us with about 480 kilobytes of VRAM per scene, which is like a 704 by 512 texture. While the largest texture a PS1 could write to is 640 by 480, this is not the same when it comes to reading, and the largest texture we can use for polygons in the scene is 256 by 256. With our limited VRAM, that gives us about 4 of those to work with for everything we want to render in a scene. This means we want to be as efficient with our textures as possible, as demonstrated here by some Silent Hill textures that I ripped from the game. As you can see, many different surfaces are packed into the small space available. Applying these observations to our own scene, I painted a small, snowy 256 by 64 texture in Photoshop by layering some noise textures. Given the small scope of our scene, we could be much greedier with our textures here to give more variety, but I ended up using this one texture for both of the bridge and the terrain to keep it simple. Low-resolution render targets and textures already gives our scene that retro feel, but our modern GPU is actually doing something behind the scenes that's preventing it from looking exactly like the PS1 did. The GPUs of today account for perspective when sampling textures, while the PS1 GPU did not do this, instead utilizing a technique called affine texture mapping. To understand what this means though, we first must learn about how we go from a polygon in the scene to pixels on your screen. Imagine A cube. The points or vertices that make up this cube are defined relative to the cube's origin, the center of the cube. For example, 1, 1, 1, negative 1, 1, 1, etc. We would say that these positions are in local space, local to our cube 3D model. Now, imagine that this cube exists in a greater world in some arbitrary location. Positions here are defined relative to the world's origin, not the cube's. If our cube was 5 meters to the right, then our 1, 1, 1 position would no longer be accurate. It should be 6, 1, 1. We would say this position is now in world space. To go from local space to world space, we use something called a model matrix, which is a transformation matrix that when multiplied with a vertex position, transforms it into its position in the world. In this example, our model matrix would be a translation 5 units on the x-axis. For a deeper explanation of transformation matrices, please check out my video on procedural particle fractals. When we move objects around in a game engine editor, we are modifying the underlying model matrix, not the actual vertex data of the object. Now, imagine a camera pointing at our cube. We would like to know where this cube is in relation to the camera, with the camera being the origin of this new space, which we call camera space or view space. If we imagine a set of axes laid over our camera, then the direction of our camera will always represent the direction of the positive z-axis. With this camera direction, we take the cross product with a vector pointing up in world space to obtain the direction of the positive x-axis. Then finally, we take the cross product of the z and x directions to obtain the positive y direction of the camera, and we have the axes of our camera space. Since we have a coordinate space defined by 3 axes, we can convert any position to it by simply multiplying by a matrix containing the 3 vectors, and to account for the position of the camera, we also multiply by a translation matrix. This transformation matrix is called the view matrix, and when multiplied with our world space cube position, gives us the position of the cube relative to the camera. We still have one more coordinate conversion left, but at this point, we should talk about what the GPU actually expects to receive in the end. When all is said and done, our position should be in the range of -1 to 1 if we want it to be on screen. This range is known as normalized device coordinates. Anything outside of this range will be discarded or clipped, and so our final coordinate system is known as clip space. The conversion from view space to clip space is known as projection. There are 2 kinds of projection matrices, orthographic and perspective. For 3D, we want perspective projection for actual perceptual depth in our scene. The construction of our perspective projection matrix starts with defining the 6 planes that form our camera's frustum. Any point inside this truncated pyramid will be within view of the camera. Generally though, frustums are symmetrical, and so we only need to define 3 values: the horizontal field of view angle and the distance of the near and far planes of the frustum from the camera. We take the tangent of half the field of view angle and multiply with the distance of the near plane to get the left and right of the frustum, then multiply one of those by the aspect ratio of the screen to get the top and bottom of the frustum. From here, the actual derivation of the projection matrix is considerably complicated, so if you're mathy, you can read this article that explains it in detail. The 6 values come together to form this matrix. The perspective projection matrix transforms our truncated pyramid slice of view space to the normalized device coordinate range cube. Any position in view space that is outside of the frustum is discarded because it'll be outside of the -1 to 1 range upon transformation. In summary, our vertex positions start out relative to the 3D model that they make up, which we multiply by the model matrix to transform to world space, which we multiply by the view matrix, so we transform to view space, which we multiply by the projection matrix to transform to clip space. While we might have these concepts of a world or a camera as actual things, they are, in reality, just transformation matrices behind the scenes. After our polygons have been converted to clip space, they're sent off to the rasterization stage of the rendering pipeline, where it's converted to pixels on your screen. And it's at this point where the PS1 GPU and modern GPUs diverge. Okay, there is just one more step of our model view projection transformation. Clip space coordinates are actually 4-dimensional. The projection matrix grows the 4th component W based on the distance from the camera, and the 3 other components are in the range -W to W. To finish our conversion to the -1 to 1 range, we divide the X, Y, and Z components by W. Since W grows based on distance, the further an object is from the camera, camera, the tinier it becomes, simulating the perspective effect of distant objects appearing smaller. This final step is called perspective division, and modern GPUs do this for you automatically because they are built for 3D rendering. It might surprise you to hear this after talking about 3D PS1 games so much, but the PS1 GPU is actually a 2D renderer. Any clip space position passed to the PS1 GPU has its third component discarded, and it only works with the X and Y coordinates of the 2D plane we projected our vertices onto. Because of the magic of the model view projection matrix transformation, PS1 games could be 3D despite the fact it's a 2D rendering engine. But how does this limitation affect the final appearance of the scene? After our clip space positions have been finalized, the rendering pipeline moves into the rasterization stage where our polygon is converted into pixels. It's here where yet another important quirk of the PS1 GPU appears. It works with integer values only. Our clip space coordinates are rounded to the nearest whole number. Modern GPUs can use that decimal value for sub-pixel rasterization, providing smoother motion as polygons cross pixel boundaries. But on the PS1, a pixel is either occupied or not. No partial occupation is allowed, resulting in pixels flickering on or off, giving the iconic wobbly appearance to objects that move very slightly. After pixel occupation is determined, the vertex data is linearly interpolated across the pixels based on the 2D screen coordinates, but uh-oh, because of our perspective correction and 3D shenanigans, the vertex data now has a non-linear relationship with the 2D screen coordinates, causing incorrect interpolation results and distorted textures. As I mentioned earlier, this technique is called affine texture mapping, and it is probably the most defining characteristic of PS1 graphics. Modern GPUs do not have this issue as they are able to properly interpolate perspective correct values because they're actually meant to render 3D scenes, unlike the PS1, which is why our scene currently doesn't have this distortion. While the overall 3D rendering process is pretty much the same today as it was on the PS1,
Pick up the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge with a beyond slim design. With O2,
the integer coordinate restriction and affine texture mapping give the PS1 its unique wobbly and distorted appearance. Now that we understand how this all works, it's time to implement and apply it to our scene to see the difference. Let's start by rounding our pixels to simulate the wobbly nature of PS1 graphics. The rounding occurs when the clip space vertex position is passed to the rasterizer on the PS1, so we want to modify our clip space calculation in the vertex shader. Our vertex starts out in local space, which we transform to world space, then view space, then clip space. Remember that clip space positions are in the range -W to W, but if we want to round to the nearest point on the pixel grid, we need to convert to the range of our screen resolution. We divide by W to convert to the -1 to 1 range, multiply by our screen resolution, round the result, then divide by the screen resolution to return to the -1 to 1 range, and multiply by W to return to the -W to W range because the GPU will automatically divide by W later for us. This results in vertex positions rounding to the nearest exact pixel coordinate on screen, and no more partial occupation of a pixel can occur, preventing our GPU from doing any sub-pixel rasterization and simulating the PS1 pixel snapping. Remember that this effect is only super obvious when objects are moving very slightly at a low resolution, otherwise it looks pretty much the same. Now to introduce the PS1's distorted textures, we need to undo the perspective correction that our GPU does for us automatically. We multiply our vertex UV coordinates by W, and then in the fragment shader, we divide by W to reverse the perspective correction applied during interpolation, then sample our texture. Pretty simple. Here's a comparison between the two. As you can see, the distortion is really bad here. It almost seems wrong, because if you've played PS1 games, you probably never saw anything like this. So how did PS1 developers hide severe distortion from the players? The distortion gets really bad when polygons are viewed at even mildly grazing angles, so an easy fix for this is preventing grazing angles from ever occurring by disallowing players from controlling the camera. Fixed cameras were very popular in the PS1 era. Silent Hill, Resident Evil, and Metal Gear Solid all make use of fixed cameras that generally prevented grazing viewing angles. Other games like Wipeout or first-person shooters like Alien did not have this luxury though, and instead had to make use of another solution. The other case in which heavy distortion occurs is when the polygon takes up a lot of space on the screen. So to fix this, we need more polygons. If we subdivide our cube to contain more triangles, the distortion pretty much entirely disappears as less data needs to be interpolated and less error accumulates. It might be surprising to hear, but the PS1 took heavy advantage of real-time quad subdivision so that the geometry would be much more dense, closer to the camera, preventing any severe distortion. This was possible because the PS1 drew polygons one at a time from CPU commands, so the CPU could very easily draw more polygons if needed. We could simulate this on modern GPUs through the use of tessellation shaders, which will subdivide meshes for us at runtime based on view distance, but nowadays, this distortion is less of an undesirable artifact and more of an intentional feature, so I chose not to do this because the tessellation shaders would fix the distortion almost entirely. With pixel snapping and affine texture mapping, our scene is looking a lot more accurate to the PS1 era. It's looking a little flat though because there's no lighting or shadows whatsoever. So it's time to learn about how PS1 games did lighting. I've covered lighting numerous times in my videos at this point, and it's always been pretty involved because in the modern era, we can make a shader do whatever complex behaviors we want through shader code, but in the PS1 era, programmable shaders did not exist. In fact, programmable shaders weren't a thing on consoles until the PS3 and Xbox 360 era. This is great news for people who want to make a PS1 style game, because technically writing any shader code at all is against the rules. Obviously, we have to write some shader code to reverse the conveniences of modern GPUs, but when it comes to lighting, things have never been simpler. The PS1 GPU has what's known as a fixed function architecture, meaning it does exactly what it's built to do and cannot be reprogrammed to behave differently. The PS1 GPU could draw triangles as well as quads, unlike the GPUs of today which only draw triangles, and these polygons could be flat shaded, textured, or Gouraud shaded. This third option, Gouraud shading, is where PS1 lighting comes from. When vertices are passed into the GPU, they can come attached with something called a vertex color, which is then interpolated across the pixels during rasterization, just like our UV coordinates from earlier. These vertex colors don't really have to be colors though. We can interpret that data however we want, such as treating it like light data. If each vertex stored a brightness value, then during interpolation, lighting is achieved as this brightness is smoothly blended across the polygons. This technique is often referred to as vertex lighting, and I think that's because people just don't know how to pronounce Gouraud shading. Since only one value can be stored per vertex, we are limited to a single light source, whether that be a directional light, point light, spotlight, ambient light, or whatever. We only get one. Most games would use this channel for ambient occlusion to give some sense of shadowing in the scene, but Silent Hill actually saves this channel for the flashlight and communicates ambient lighting through the color textures. I don't feel like programming a flashlight, so I just went with the usual ambient occlusion since my texturing doesn't take lighting into account. In Blender, I manually painted the ambient occlusion onto the vertices, and when imported into Godot, we multiply the vertex color with the texture sample in order to get our lighting. Remember that because these vertex colors are interpolated across the screen, the Gouraud shading on the PS1 is also perspectively incorrect, and so we must reverse the perspective correction using the same trick we did to the UVs, although it's nearly impossible to actually see the distortion anyways. With lighting baked onto our model's vertices, our scene looks much less flat, which is great. Now, for probably the most exciting part of the video, it's time to dissect and learn about one of the most famous effects of the PS1 era, the Silent Hill fog. It took me quite a lot of digging on the internet to find an actual explanation for how Silent Hill fog worked, and even then, I didn't really get an answer. So, I pulled up an of Silent Hill and used NVIDIA Insight to capture a frame to get some idea of what's going on. Remember that all of the PS1 VRAM is contained in a single small texture, so on the left we have that double buffer setup with one of them being rendered to while the other is presented to the screen, and on the right we have all of the textures currently in use. As you can see, the PS1 really does draw the scene quad by quad, but interestingly, we're seeing two quads drawn each time. First, a black Gouraud shaded quad, and then the textured quad is drawn on top. The developers of Silent Hill are doing quite the dastardly trick here to get high quality fog into the game. This first quad that is drawn is actually the fog shaded quad, with the vertex color of each quad containing not lighting information, but the fog factor. The PS1 GPU then blends these fog factors together during interpolation, giving us the fog gradient into the distance. This means the fog is also distorted by the lack of perspective correction. But what about the textured quad? This quad is actually semi-transparent, such that it blends with the underlying fogged quad. Otherwise, it would just completely cover up the fog. The end result is what we know and love, simple yet effective distance fog, but it doesn't come for free. It's actually really expensive. Since 2 quads are drawn per quad, this doubles the geometry count of the scene, which is why the fog is so intense. Silent Hill really couldn't afford to render that many polygons with this heavy of a restriction, and would use the fog to hide all of the stuff not being rendered in the distance. According to the technical specification, the PS1 could handle up to 90,000 polygons on the screen with texturing and Guru shading enabled, so Silent Hill could only do 45K, and even then, I'm not sure if that is for 30 FPS or not. Obviously, it is 2025, and this is not really a concern for us since GPUs can handle millions of triangles with ease now, but it was certainly a headache for the developers of Silent Hill. Recreating this fog effect for ourselves is quite simple. For each vertex, we calculate the distance from the camera, send it through a linear fog factor conversion, invert it so that it goes from 0 to 1, and blend between the pixel color and desired fog color. No need to draw the polygons twice. The result is a beautiful, moody, foggy scene. How pleasant. Our scene is very nearly finished, but we're still missing one of the most crucial components of the PS1 era, dithering. In the current day, monitors and games can output and handle an extremely high amount of colors, with 24 bits being used per pixel on your screen, supporting 16.7 million different possible colors. In the 90s though, this was not the case, and colors were more often 15-bit, supporting only around 33,000 possible colors. While the PS1 did process 24-bit color during rendering, it still outputs 15-bit color. With such a limited range of colors, gradients didn't look so good, and would often contain an artifact known as color banding, where there are visible abrupt changes between the colors. In a game like Silent Hill, this color banding would be very apparent due to the fog introducing a gradient. We can actually see this banding in the I'm using because it has disabled the dithering. Currently our scene is rendering 24-bit colors, so it looks totally fine, but we want to reduce these 16.7 million possible colors to 33,000. We do this with a process called quantization. 8 bits per channel means 256 possible values, including 0, so we multiply our color by 255 to put it in that range. In 15-bit color, there is 5 bits per channel, meaning 32 possible values, so we divide our color by 8 to reduce the range to 0 to 31, and we have 15-bit color. This quantization introduces some pretty gnarly color banding, especially on the river. To fix this, we use something called dithering. Dithering is a technique where we intentionally add noise to the image in order to spread gradients out and create the illusion of a smoother blend. In the past, I have covered Bayer dithering and blue noise dithering, most famously used by the game Return of the Obra Dinn, but the PS1 actually had its own proprietary dither matrix. This 4x4 matrix is tiled across the image, and we use the screen coordinate to index the matrix and grab its corresponding noise value, which we add to the color before reducing to 15 bits. The result is a pleasantly dithered image, and we now have that iconic washed out PS1 dither appearance. Due to the lower resolution and upscaling, the dither pattern is very obvious, but this is how it was back in the day, so... You can see that the PS1 dither pattern has an almost scanline-like appearance, which, given the use of CRTs back then, this would probably look a lot cooler on a CRT. At this point, we have covered pretty much everything that goes into the PS1 aesthetic, so it's time to finish up our scene with some particles, sounds, and music. Given the geometry limit of around 90k polygons on screen at one time for the PS1, our scene is well within that limit at only 20k, which is kind of a lot I guess, but even if we were doing Silent Hill's double geometry, we'd be okay. Silent Hill also features some particles that drift down. Whether this is snow or ash, who knows? But given our snowy scene, I thought some snow particles would look great, as we have plenty of available polygons to work with. While I usually roll my own systems, for this I just used Godot's built-in particle system because particle systems are not the topic of this video. Go watch this other video for that. We create a particle emitter sitting above the camera that shoots out some quads at slightly random angles and velocities, and we have snow. I was satisfied with the appearance of the scene at this point. I was originally going to do something for the river to give some detail, but given the low resolution and suffocating fog, the dither gradient already provides some texture to the river, and I didn't think anything more was needed. Whether it's dimly lit ice or water, Who knows? Next, I used Audacity to generate some noise for ambiance that sounds like this. The scene feels like it would be quite stormy or windy, so the noise helps with the audio-visual cue. Then I used BFXR to create a simple footstep sound, which is also just noise, but I think it sounds good enough. Lastly, I wanted to put my piano skills to use, so I learned the first few measures of one of my favorite songs, Pavon OP50, which I think matches the overall vibe, and our little PS1 scene is finished.
Decent blow to the side.
If you want to make a historically accurate PS1 game, then your project should be rendered at or less than 320 by 240, have no more than 90k textured and shaded polygons on screen, use no more than around 424 kilobytes of VRAM for textures, one light source, perspective incorrect interpolation, clip space rounding, 15-bit colors, and dithering. If your goal is to simply capture the essence of the PS1 era, then what matters most is the incorrect interpolation and clip space rounding. The other limitations are really quite arbitrary. No one is going to count the polygons on screen or check to see you're not using very many textures. With all this in mind, I think the PSX aesthetic is really quite accessible even for beginners. All of the topics presented in this video amounts to only a couple lines of shader code. Beyond that, it's your art and game design skills that matter most. If you're interested in a new PS1 style game to play, this video and topic was brought to you by my friend Mr. The and Street Uni X, the world's first authentic street unicycling video game featuring the most hardcore, radical tricks you've ever seen. Street Uni X applies many of the topics covered in this video to present an authentic retro experience, taking real-life locations and demaking them into the visuals of the 90s. Unlike the games I make for my videos, Street Uni X is actually tons of fun to play, especially if you're a fan of other arcade skating games like Tony Hawk. With unique controls that capture the nuanced capabilities of unicycling, alongside the nostalgic, goal-oriented gameplay rush of extreme sports video games past, Street Uni X will leave you at the edge of your seat while you wall tap to your next grind. So be sure to check out the game's free demo on Steam linked in the description. I'd appreciate it a lot. Thanks so much to Mr. The and Street Uni X for sponsoring this video. Overall, it's pretty obvious why the PS1 aesthetic has grown in popularity over the years. Its simplicity and nostalgic appearance makes it a great option for indie developers, and I sure do love dithering. The only thing I really didn't talk about in this video is the PS1's quirky Z-fighting, which is really hard to replicate given it was an artifact of the PS1's software renderer approach, and if I were to recreate it, it'd be extremely slow and not really worth the effort. Maybe I'll do it for a future video. If you'd like to support the channel and help me continue creating free graphics programming resources, please check out the Patreon. While the code for this project is available for you to build in the description with comments explaining the shader code, patrons get access to a build of the game so you don't have to build it yourself. So if you want to walk around in my snowy scene, you can find it over there. As usual, a huge thank you to all my current patrons. Without your support, I wouldn't be able to spend all of your money on Minecraft IMAX tickets. Also, I'll be giving a talk at GodotCon next week, so if you're around, come say hi. Anyways, that's all from me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.
With Virgin Media, get smooth, lightning fast M125 broadband.
What is going on, everyone? In this video, I am going to break down your options when it comes to character movement, going over ALS, GASP, and at the very end, some information on how I might be able to help you out. First up, and the most simple, we have state machine movement. This is where we have numerous animations for moving, usually in 8 directions: forwards, backwards, left, right, forwards, left, forwards, right, back, left, back, right. And we blend between these animations based on speed and direction. This is the type of animation which 99% of the animations on the marketplace are set up using, and it's a simple but effective way of moving your character around. Almost all of you watching this video will be using this animation setup for your games, as it's easy to understand, but most importantly, cost effective, as it requires the least amount of animations. Next up, we have the more complex movement frameworks, with the most popular being ALS and GASP, created by Epic Games. Starting off with ALS. ALS was made by one person, but it is now a community system with no further updates. It works by using state machines for movement, a heap of blending animations, and inverse kinematics, which is the process of moving a specific limb to a specific area and having the bones following the chain react to this movement. The main concept works by having a state machine for movement and then blending in other animations for different stances, aim offsets, and poses. It uses inverse kinematics for feet placement and climbing or mantling. It also involves a lot of curves in the animation to get blending working correctly. I am no expert whatsoever at using ALS, but from what I gather, the animation requirement is relatively low, as you're using the state machine movement as a base and blending in other poses. However, the main restriction comes from the animations needing to have a similar pose, as well as the heap of knowledge required to understand how the blending works. It is also worth mentioning that ALS is not multiplayer replicated. As for GASP, it's different to ALS in that it has a much more advanced movement set, but at the cost of requiring an insane amount of animations. It works by using a trajectory trace to predict the next best animation for the character to play. It has mantling, but a less advanced climbing setup in comparison to ALS. I'm unsure if Epic plans to advance on this as of today. It's an incredibly impressive system, as the movement is basically lifelike. The problem is that if you want to add in any other kind of movement set to your system, you will need hundreds of animations to make it smooth. Epic have created 2 sets so far. One is the default movement and one is the set as seen in Lyra. It is multiplayer replicated from version 5.5 onwards. Okay, so you've got all this information. You're probably still wondering what the heck you should do, so let me lay out some rough overviews for you. Use ALS if you've got an animation whiz on your team that understands curves, understands blending, and you're happy with a base of similar posed animations, as you need knowledge and time over raw animation data. Use GASP if you're happy with one movement set, or if you're in a big team and can afford to mass produce animations. And use state machines in all other scenarios. Hey, they work, they're simple, and you can always add in climbing and inverse kinematic footing to it. If you want me to fix all your problems, well, give me a minute of your time to tell you about my asset, the flexible combat system, and what it might be able to do for you. As most of you know, I'm the creator of the flexible combat system, a massive framework. It's super awesome. Go check it out, link in description. But I want to take a moment to tell you about the direction we're taking the movement. The system is already set up with state machines for multiple weapon stances and attacks to go with each. One-handed, two-handed, two-handed light, main-handed shield, you get the idea. We have 367 animations in the project. This has inverse kinematics set up for footing, so the feet align with the ground and things are looking smooth. Most importantly, in the next month, we will be taking everything that is good and manageable for an everyday game developer from ALS and GASP and throwing it into the system. First, we're going to be throwing in GASP, which can be used as the default movement when you're moving around unarmed. Because of the lack of animations for weapons, when you switch to a weapon stance, you will then run the default state machine. Depending on how things go financially, I will be looking into providing a full GASP movement system for every weapon stance, but that's future talk, as that is a lot of animations. I will also be including all the mantling and climbing included with the GASP system, allowing you to climb over objects. We will also be providing a blend option for using GASP with weapons. However, this is far from perfect. This has been included just to give you guys every possible option. So, for movement, with a flick of a switch, you can swap between state machine movement, GASP unarmed plus state machine movement, or full GASP movement with blending weapon movement. All three of these options, including the climbing from GASP. But that is not all. We will also be adding in additional movement options. Swimming, ladder climbing, and actual cliff climbing to really try and push your character navigation to where you can move around freely. In terms of timeline, we're hoping to have all this included in the next 2 months, and of course, this is just the beginning of the updates. So, if that sounds like something you're interested in, be sure to check out the pack, and if it's not, no problem, I wish you the very best with your game development. My name is Beardman, thank you so much for watching, I will see you in the next one, and stay tuned for more updates. Peace!
Yesterday, big tragedy. 2 Israeli diplomats were killed by a person who started screaming pro-Palestine. This is the guy that did the shooting. I believe that's him. There he is again, and who carried out the brutal attack on Washington. This is him talking right here. They got him. So he shot and killed 2 people.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
And Hamas. Oh boy. And so, yep, that's my expression as well. So, 2 Israeli staff were executed yesterday in Washington, D.C. today. Just 2 days ago, Hassan Piker hosted a 20,000-person live stream at Bad Empanada. I don't know really who this is. A guy who repeatedly urged his audience to go out and kill Israelis. Very interesting timing. I'm not saying that they caused this to happen, but you know who is saying that? Well, let's go ahead and listen to the clip. All right, here we go.
All of us need to call it out. I'm thinking about the New York Times doing a gauzy profile a few weeks ago of this gamer, Hassan Piker, who regularly employs awful genocidal rhetoric against Jewish people in the Jewish state. Like, extremists should not be empowered. People who spout prejudice should not be platformed. This is a moment when we need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, we've got to stop this because the consequences are deadly. But
it gets better. This was from April 2025. Okay, this is what I said in April 2025. Twitch needs to stop making decisions based off of their radical, like politically motivated moderation team. Like if I was Twitch, I would probably get rid of the entire moderation team. It seems very obvious to me that, and this is what's going to happen by the way. The moderation team is going to get Twitch in trouble because eventually there's going to be a lack of moderation for something that's really bad. Like, I don't know, like some sort of like really bad, like somebody gets killed, like kind of like the Luigi thing, but like maybe a little bit worse than that. It's like political. And I'm just like coming up with an example, right? Like maybe some like terror attack happens or whatever. And if you have people on Twitch that are supporting this, theoretically, every single advertiser is going to leave the platform, and it is going to be an instantaneous apocalypse situation.
All of us need to call it out. I'm thinking about the New York Times doing a gauzy profile a few weeks ago of this gamer, Hassan Piker, who regularly employs awful genocidal rhetoric against Jewish people in the Jewish state.
Wow. Wow. I don't even know what to say. That this is insane. Like, I've never seen a sweep like this before in my fucking life. All right, so here's another one right here. This is me talking about it again. Asmongold predicts big problems in Twitch's future if they keep allowing this rhetoric to go unpunished. This was from February 28th, 2025. I'm just, I'm kind of shocked that this is happening. And I also want to say that this rise in extremism and this rise in extremist rhetoric will eventually be very, very damaging for Twitch. Because eventually somebody will say something, will this be the time? It probably won't be the time. But eventually somebody will say something and it's going to get mainstream attention to a degree that it's going to damage Twitch on a massive level. Because this type of language and rhetoric is extremely distasteful. And I think that average people see this and they find it abhorrent. Yep. And the fact is that if you keep saying stuff like this and you keep doing this, you will eventually, in my opinion, like if I was Amazon and I found out this was happening, I would fire everybody at leadership at Twitch. I would. Because the fact is that the people who are leadership at Twitch have allowed this to happen. And they've allowed it to happen for a long time. It's not like this is just the first time it's happened. There's a pattern of behavior here. And I think that Twitch really needs to look at reining this kind of stuff in. Like, I've said things that were out of pocket before. Yeah, and so, yeah, I've said it before. And, again, like, I don't know, Twitch in trouble. Because it seems very obvious to me. One more time. We got to listen to this one more time. This is what's going to happen, by the way. The moderation team is going to get Twitch in trouble. Because eventually there's going to be a lack of moderation for something that's really bad. Like, I don't know, like some sort of like really bad, like somebody gets killed, like kind of like the Luigi thing, but like maybe a little bit worse than that. It's like political. And I'm just like coming up with an example, right? Like maybe some like terror attack happens or whatever. And if you have people on Twitch that are so, the fact is that, you know, there are people that call me the Pope of journalism. Why did you do it? I don't know. Hassan tweeted about the CNN video. Oh, I bet he did. He's probably very upset about this because it makes him look bad. I mean, I'm sure he's upset about them blaming him. And it looks bad. It really does. And so I said this shit was going to happen. And again, I told them this was going to happen. I said a 100% chance this is going to happen. And that's what it was. And I don't know what to say, guys. And this is really, really, really bad. And I don't know what to say. And yeah, I bet the shooter strapped us on. Oh, I never said that it was hit. Again, I never blamed, and I am not blaming it on him. That's not what I'm saying. I was saying is that by Twitch allowing this rhetoric on the platform, they open themselves up to the accusations that, and again, this is people that are openly promoting terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, okay? We're not talking about like, you know, some, you know, political disagreeer. We're talking about literal fucking terrorist orgs. And so there you go. And dear most humble Zap, there's nothing to brag about here. I didn't listen. Why did it not happen sooner? Unbelievable. I said it was going to be 6 months to a year, and I think I was just about right. And there you go. And it's that simple. If Twitch allows terrorist rhetoric, that just means they support it. Well, it's going to look very, very bad. And the problem is not that it's like I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that it's Hassan's fault that this happened. That's crazy. Like, it's not like this guy watched Hassan and then he just immediately went over and said, okay, I'm gonna go shoot up this embassy. Right? I don't think that's what happened. Like, this is probably a confluence of events. No, and I'm just being honest, right? Most people get radicalized and they do things, and there's like 50 different fucking things that come together. But the difference is that with Twitch, they don't do anything about it. And so, like, that's the big problem. You said it yesterday. You have the ability to stop something from happening if you don't basically agree with it. Yes, exactly. And so, I mean, how do you know that didn't happen? It's not something that I would say happened. That's outrageous to say that would happen. That's crazy to accuse somebody of that. Crazy, crazy, crazy. I would never say that. And so anyway, do a video. We told you. I tried. And listen, I'm gonna put it down. All right. If there's anybody from Amazon and or even the executive leadership at Twitch, and you guys really want me to come in and fix this, right? I don't know if it's fixable yet. I actually think this could be it. Like, this legitimately could be so damaging it will cause advertisers to leave. I think that a lot of people are massively downplaying how big of a deal it is that you have a named person that is being connected to an active terror attack who has a history of supporting terrorist organizations. This is really, really fucking bad. Extremely fucking bad. And if you think that, like, Twitch and advertisers and people like that, Adpocalypse 2.0, this is going to make the last one look like a joke. Like, if this catches on and gets bigger, and I don't think, again, do you remember whenever the Adpocalypse happened? Do you remember when it happened and I said it wouldn't happen immediately? It would happen maybe like 3 or 4 months in the future because of the way that advertising budgets work. Remember whenever I said that? Remember when I said that? I'm just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page. No? Well, I said basically, so no. Okay, so this is what I had said. And I'll go back and I can repeat myself again. Is that advertising contracts and budgets usually happen on a yearly, quarterly, or semester basis, right? Like a 6-month basis. So advertising contracts usually do not immediately get canceled, but they oftentimes do not get renewed. And so I said that whenever the first Twitch adpocalypse happened, and some people are saying there was no adpocalypse, I said, you're right, because you haven't seen it yet, because the ripple hasn't gotten far enough out. Now we see the ripple coming farther out, and you're seeing, think about all of the streamers in the past week that have said that they've lost tons of ad revenue. Like Techie was right, Tectone was right, I was right, it was so obvious, right? This was going to happen. And so, yes, blaming Hassan is basically blaming GTA for violence. I'm not, listen, I'm sure he's going to get mad about this. I'm not blaming Hassan. Period. I'm not. Okay, let's move on. So that's it. It's terrible comparison. Well, what I'm saying, the ADL did, yes, and I'm saying this is what happened. And anyway, my viewers can. You can have what do you think? I have to tell you that what you have to think or whatnot. I'm giving you my opinion. I don't think that it's reasonable to say that, and it's not fair, especially not with we don't have any evidence of that yet, right? I mean, it's crazy to say. And so, why are you not? You can really use him as an example every day. Why am I not? Because correlation does not mean causation. That's the reason why. Is that shooting first and asking questions later has gotten me in trouble in the past, and I don't want it to get me in trouble again. And I try to be accurate and correct in what I say, and I try not to draw conclusions before I'm certain of them. And so that's it. And that's really all there is to it. And it's a venomous rhetoric that gets pushed all the time. Yes, of course. Don't you think he's contributing to radicalization? Does Hassan contribute to radicalizing people? Abso-fucking-lutely. 100% he contributes to radicalizing people. Like, without a doubt. And I'm sure that to some extent, so do I. Right? I'm not saying, like, I'm not special. Like, this is the way that a lot of political rhetoric is, right? But like, the point is that yes, 100% that happens. When you tweet out the picture of a gun that was used to kill a elected representative as a response to another elected representative, and then you have to delete the tweet, everybody knows why you deleted the tweet. It's because you knew you were going to get in trouble. It's because it was bad. And so that's it. It's not his fault, but he does fan the flames. Yes, exactly. You don't call for violence? I do not call for violence. The only thing I call for is extreme punishment through the legal system. That's what I do call for. And so anyway, that's the difference. You've radicalized me into being more logically inclined. Yes, I've radicalized. What I have done, I am a radicalizing force. I radicalize people towards the truth. That's the difference between me and a lot of other people. But, you know, that's okay, right? And, you know, nobody's going to be perfect. Well, almost nobody. But, you know, and again, I don't like a person normally that sees this and realizes that they were vindicated on this level. You know, people like this usually don't, you know, it affects their ego. Luckily, I am the most humble streamer on the platform. I don't let this affect my ego. I know that this was a pretty easy prediction to make. Anybody could have expected this to happen. And I had mentioned it multiple times over the years. It's not really a big deal, but I just want to say that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And that's where I am. I'm not a wizard. I'm not Nostradamus. But at least I try to look around and see what's happening. Other people close their eyes and they imagine what they want to have happen. That's the difference. That's the reason. Now, 4 eyes and I still can't see? Good one. And, yeah, there you go. And, what else? Yeah, so I don't even think it's that big of a deal that I was right about this, but there you go. And, nah, I'll leave the gamer out of it. Yeah, this is not a gamer thing, but yeah.
But all of us need to call it out. I'm thinking about the New York Times doing a gauzy profile a few weeks ago of this gamer, Hassan Piker, who regularly employs awful genocidal rhetoric against Jewish people in the Jewish state.
Have you seen that Hassan called you a white supremacist? Which time? You'd have to be more specific. But, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I've seen it recently. I mean, sure, I don't know, is there a new one in the last day or so? Maybe there has been. And so anyway, yeah, I'm not sure. And Dag Heels, thanks to the 20 gifted subs. I appreciate that. And by the way, I love how, you know, for being a white supremacist, I sure do interact with a lot of brown people, right? Isn't that weird that I make videos supporting brown people regularly and black people regularly, and I have friends with them, and, you know, like, isn't that weird? That's crazy, right? Wow, what are the odds of that? I think I'm not very good at my job. I need to become a better white supremacist, I guess. Yeah, you're horrible at it. I guess so. And anyway, so this is what's happened. And obviously, I want to say, I tried so hard to warn Twitch that this was going to happen. I said, please listen to me. Please listen. Please don't take this bullshit. Asmon War... Oh, man. They all knew the ADL can be ridiculous at times. He's 200% right. Yes, there we go. And the error will leftists call for genocide against Jews, but at the same time call for everybody a Nazi. Funniest thing about this, he gave Hassan the coveted gamer title that Asmingel will be proud to be recognized for. Yeah, it's pretty bad. And I explained to everyone how much these journalists loved him. I guess he's about to find out. Well, do you remember what I said before about how your biggest strength is your biggest weakness? Well, I think this is a great example of that. Hassan has enjoyed a tremendous amount of preferential treatment by the media, and that preferential treatment has increased his image, and it's caused a lot more mainstream media to get attention on him, and now he's reaping the consequences of that with people naming him as a radicalizing force after a terrorist attack. And that's what happens. And again, that's that's the way it goes. And this is wild, honestly. It's not wild to me. It's exactly what happened. And I can read this here. This is what happened. And so 2 staff members from the Embassy of Israel were fatally shot outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in D.C. The suspect, identified as a 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago, shouted "Free Palestine" after shooting and during the arrest. Yes, I'm sure everybody in Palestine, this is really going to help them. and shooting 2 random young people that work at an embassy. And authorities are investigating the possible motives, including terrorism and anti-Semitism. So we'll go ahead and we'll look into this individual and see if there's any information about this at all. And yeah, let's see here. The judge got arrested for helping illegals avoid ICE. Yeah, we're going to get to that, but not yet. And anyway, as Hispanic born in Chicago, he was completely radicalized by socialism and Islamic propaganda. His profile flags. Uh-oh. Profile flags Islamic countries and his beliefs were that of Hamas. I can confirm he was a Twitch user. There's no way. There's no... Dude. There is no way. Oh, God. Do you want to know what the best plot twist would be? Is if he was banned in Hassan's chat and he was a tier 3 sub in mine. That would be the craziest plot twist that you could possibly see. Yeah, I mean, by the way, that would definitely be the most, it'd be funny. Yeah. And anyway, let's see here. Domestic terrorists hunting Jews last night. Let's see if we can find it. Do you think I can confirm he was a Twitch user? How do we know about this? Richie Torres was going off on Amazon policy earlier this year. It was creating terrorists. Yep, Richie was right. And I don't doubt it. Can he post evidence? Yeah, let's see the evidence. How can you confirm he was a Twitch user? We're not really sure. And I don't know. Yeah, I want to see the evidence. I want to find it. I mean, former Twitter accounts of the shooter and the news. This is his web archive. He changed his handle to Kyle Leather and someone else registered it. There's that as well of his Elias account. So then we've already found a bunch of information about this at all. And needs to get his username? No, and that's what we need to find. And I'm sure that the internet can find it faster than since you misposted. What evidence of him not owning that account since then? Archived tweet seems like the same commie terrorism supporting dipshit as the Kyle Leather. The name change is only part of the Elias account. I don't think that we have enough evidence to really say that for sure. But check his username and chat. Well, I mean, we would have probably already done that, right? I mean, that's clearly not it. So someone says username was the same as his Twitter name. Well, let's go ahead and find out. /user Elias. It looks like no user matches that login. Let me make sure that I actually typed it the right way. Yeah, I did. Okay, so, and then we have another one, Kyle Leather Twitter name. Sure, we're going to put that one in there too. And user, so somebody created the account 39 minutes ago. And so obviously a memer, a jokester, a trickster. And so, clever, right? Very clever, but not exactly there. Not real. Yeah, exactly. Like, you can see the creation date. So, nice try, though. If you want to do something like that to frame somebody, next thing, if you want to do that next time, buy an account and then get a name change and request a name change from Twitch. And that way you can maintain the creation date of the account while also maintaining the history of the account. And so if you want to frame somebody better next time, that's my advice. So there you go. But either way, I do think this will be a huge moment for Twitch. And so ADL has an anti-gamer agenda, clearly. And so this is what's happened, is that basically, I've said this was going to happen now for months, and it has finally happened. I said that there would be a terrorist attack and there would be a terror event or something bad would happen, and it would get blamed on Twitch because Twitch has allowed radicalism and extremism like this on the platform to exist now for years. And so anyway, don't you think this will make more people watch them? Well, it will, and those people will be the people that run the advertising companies, and they'll watch them, and then they will probably stop advertising. This is probably going to cause more damage to Twitch's advertising than anything has previously. That's it. It was tipping now. Yeah, I said it was going to happen. And there you go. And Sam responded. No, I'm sure he did respond. I mean, definitely he did. But let me see what... I will look at what he said, and we'll see what he said. Let me go back over and see what the message is. Israel is as known as self-reflection is. This is so the last previous thing that he retweeted about me was also about me. Let's see here. Israel is an apartheid state doing a live stream genocide. I think it's wrong and dangerous to conflate these heinous actions with Jews. The Apartheid Defense League doesn't because they think they can improve Israel's standing by silencing its critics. It won't change the truth. This is not really true. The fact is that whenever you openly platform terrorism, you say that you don't have a problem with terrorist organizations that want to kill Jewish people. This is going to increase the rhetoric. This does turn up the temperature of the rhetoric. That's what happens. I mean, it's, again, for somebody to blame Hassan is unfair, but for somebody to say that Hassan has not been a radicalizing force in causing these people to be more extreme, I think you're being delusional. That's it. Not even condemning the guy. Yeah, exactly, right? Not even condemning him. And so, anyway... And so, do you think Twitch will forbid politics streams on a platform? There's a chance that could happen, for sure. Watch Twitch ban you out of frustration of how correct your prediction was? I did. And do you think there will be bleed over into Amazon sales and their advertisements? No, not at all. I don't think it's going to affect them in any capacity whatsoever. And that's it. And do you think if the media does pull Twitch into the mix further, Amazon would attempt to sell Twitch on top of ad losses? No. I think that what will happen at Twitch, this is what will happen. Two outcomes will probably happen. Number one, the most likely outcome is that Twitch will continue to run Amazon will continue to run Twitch at a loss as they have before, because it focuses, it's a loss leader for their other products, right? And so that's one thing. There's another option where, in terms of like what happens at Twitch, that's what I think is going to happen like with Twitch in general. I don't think they're going to sell it because of this. I don't think so, at least not yet. And so the next thing that's going to happen is that either Twitch is going to have to put out a statement about this, or they're going to have to address in one way or another. And the problem is that Twitch has been infected so deeply with the rot of these people that it's almost impossible for them to get rid of it without severing the entire limb, which is what I said with Twitch banning politics completely. It's because how can they define what politics is when you have people that think that this isn't politics, even though it's happening, right? It's impossible for them to be able to do that. If I was Twitch, I mean, I'll tell you, I would do things very differently. I'll say that. Will you go back to gaming if politics are banned? I don't know. I don't think they're going to ban politics. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is that there is, I'm not even going to say a high probability, but I would think it's possible that you could see major executive leadership changes at Twitch if the advertising goes down as massively as I think it will. That's probably what's going to happen. And I could see the entire executive leadership getting banned, and then them being even more draconian and even more extreme with the rules, which will make the website worse overall. Do you think Twitch is finally cooked? I think that this will be a really, really bad moment for Twitch. This is going to be like an insanely, like extremely bad moment for Twitch.
Hello everyone! Did you know making a complete video game entirely by yourself is one of the hardest things you could ever possibly do? Game development is very complicated for a number of reasons that people are unable to conceptualize due to probably just not thinking too much about it, and gaming status as an activity for children leads people to believe that if it's for children, it's probably not that deep. This line of thought, combined with sentiments from game development influencers saying that anyone can make games, it's easy, contributes to the infantilization and disrespect of game development as a whole. I agree with the sentiment that anyone can make a game, but these motivational statements seek to mask the truly monumental effort required to produce a game. And there's a reason success stories of solo projects like Lethal Company and Stardew Valley are incredibly rare and deserve your utmost respect. So today, we'll be going over just how much it takes to produce a game entirely by yourself and establish realistic expectations for ourselves and others. Let me start by stating the obvious. Not all games are equally complex. It's true that you can make simple and small games like Pong or the Unity tutorials where you control a ball that rolls around and picks up some points and it ends. There's nothing wrong with that. They're great beginner projects that you should start with, but this generally isn't what people mean when they say they want to make games. So it's disingenuous to point at these projects as a reference point for the skills expected of a solo game developer. Usually what people are interested in making is the more complex projects, such as that one game idea your coworker had that's a full sandbox MMO with realistic survival mechanics, or a massive RPG where every choice truly matters. In this case, the complexity grows from something you could make in an evening to something that would take your entire lifetime. Just look at Star Citizen, a game with over $600 million in funding, and yet it is far from finished, despite being in development for over 10 years with a full team of people. We must come to terms with the fact that we will never be able to make something as grand as Star Citizen by ourselves due to its monumental scope, but it would also be disingenuous to point at something that's impossible as the reference point for what's expected of a solo game developer. Surely our expectations should lie somewhere in between these two ideas, so let's start by analyzing what some would think to be easy games to make. But first, something a little different. This video has been sponsored by Brilliant. Brilliant is the best way to learn math, data science, and computer science interactively. Brilliant offers thousands of lessons from basic to advanced, so if you're just getting started learning math or are brushing up in your linear algebra for graphics programming, Brilliant has something for you. Even if you don't know where to start, that's not a problem. Brilliant customizes its content to fit what you need. Just take a short quiz when you sign up, and Brilliant will match you with lessons that fit your interests and level of expertise. I personally use Brilliant whenever I need a quick and accessible refresher on math concepts that I haven't worked with in a while, and I think it's a great starting point for someone looking to improve their math skills for game development. I appreciate that Brilliant makes it easy to find lessons on topics you're looking for, which some search engines have been making that harder recently. Be sure to try out everything Brilliant has to offer with a free 30-day trial and 20% off an annual plan when you visit brilliant.org/acerolla or click the link in the description. Thanks so much to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. Many people see game development as a technical field, which isn't really the case. In fact, you can make a game just fine without much technical knowledge at all. People tend to look down on Game Maker as too simple and lump it in with the category I mentioned earlier, but without it, we would not have games like Omori or Undertale. It's a fact that these two games feature few complex mechanics, and many would point to them as a game that seems easy to make. But is that actually the case? Sure, you don't need any real programming knowledge to make either of these games, as both Omocat and Toby Fox learned programming on the fly for them. So from an engineering standpoint, it's simple. Now you just need to be a skilled enough game designer to create a base mechanic that's interesting enough to be fun, but simple enough to be expanded upon throughout the game through boss fights that aren't too easy or too hard, different enough from each other to be exciting, and of course, are actually enjoyable. Then you just need to be a skilled enough writer to craft an interesting world, cast of characters, and the story itself. Then you need to be a skilled enough illustrative artist to design the characters, illustrate numerous character portraits for them, and of course, draw all the environment assets themselves to fill the game. Next, you need to be a skilled enough audio engineer to produce sound effects that don't suck. Finally, you need to be a skilled enough musician and composer to create an original soundtrack for your game that repeats without being repetitive and properly communicates the intended emotion of scenes. We will not consider the case of localization, where your game needs to be translated into multiple different languages for release in different countries. So while you can get away with having little programming skill, you still need at least a working knowledge of 5 entirely different creative disciplines. But many would still think these two games are something they could make themselves in a year or two. In reality, despite being attributed to one person each, Omori with Omocat and Undertale with Toby Fox, they're not solo projects. Omori was fully funded through Kickstarter, which Omocat used to hire a team of people to help with programming, writing, music, sound effects, and art. Omocat had a large part in everything except music and sound effects. Even with the funding and team of people, it still took 6.5 years to finish because yet another skill comes into play: effectively managing a team. Undertale was also funded on Kickstarter. Toby Fox did the game design, programming, story, and music, and hired Temmie Chang as the main artist responsible for most of the game's concept art and sprites. With 2 people, Undertale took nearly 3 years to complete. Perhaps a lesson is to be found here. Given our previous standards of a working knowledge of each discipline, that's not enough to create these games. Omocat is an incredibly skilled artist and hired others to cover for their lesser strengths. Toby Fox is an amazing musician and composed most of the soundtrack pretty much first try, and a lot of credit for Undertale's success is owed to Temmie's charming character designs. So if your dream project is in the realm of games like Omori and Undertale, something you would assume is low scope, it's not that you should just give up and go home, it's that we should acknowledge the skills and time it takes to achieve such a goal. Like I said earlier, programming skills are not very important in this context. If a belief that game development is highly technical is stopping you from trying to make what you want, then there's no need to worry. All you need is your creativity. Start turning your narrative ideas into short stories. Do a portrait study or 2 every day. Sign up for those music lessons. Torrent Adobe products. The time will pass anyways, so you may as well start today and imagine where you'll be a year from now when your personal growth is more intentional. Okay, enough with the motivational statements. What about games that actually were made by one person? 13 years ago, Eric Barone, better known as Concerned Ape, graduated from university with a computer science degree. Unable to get a job, Eric started working on a personal project to improve his programming skills and job prospects. Inspired by Harvest Moon's inability to produce a good game in the series, Eric announced his intent to create a spiritual successor in 2012, and, due to how much support was received from the internet, decided to focus entirely on production of the game. 4 years later, Stardew Valley was released on February 26, 2016, with the game's programming, game design, pixel art, music, sound effects, and story all done by Eric. Clearly, his hard work paid off, with the Wikipedia article I just read to you citing Stardew Valley as one of the greatest games of all time, as well as one of the best-selling games of all time. When contextualized with what we just discussed, Eric's accomplishment is no small feat, and he deserves his spot in video game history, especially considering he worked over 10 hours a day for most of the 4 years it was in development. So what made it possible for Eric to create Stardew Valley when Omori and Undertale were less reasonable solo projects? If you recall from earlier, the general level of competence needed to create those games involved little programming skill, but high output in all the art disciplines. For Stardew Valley, I would say it's nearly the opposite. The systems of the game are deceptively complex, and it's really easy to accidentally break a game that runs on such a fixed schedule. Testing this game is probably a nightmare. This was also 12 years ago, when programming resources were far less abundant on the internet. Beyond the game design though, not to sound too critical, but I think Stardew Valley has a pretty accessible art style. Pixel art was all the rage back then, so there was a lot of resources for it. The sound design is fine, the music is pretty good, but certainly not on the level of Undertale, and the story and characters exist on a pretty minimal level, just enough personality for people to identify. Overall, I would say that for someone to make Stardew Valley, they would need a decently advanced knowledge of programming, with a novice intermediate level of all the other disciplines. Eric had a CS degree, so the most difficult part of Stardew Valley was covered by his existing expertise, and he had a bit of art experience already, so the 4 years of development was probably spent improving on his lesser strengths to meet his standards, like I said someone would have to do if they wanted to make Omori or Undertale by themselves. It's also important to note that Stardew Valley went through multiple complete redesigns, so if some of those could have been avoided, or a more concrete design document was created initially, then it could have maybe taken less time. Unfortunately, sometimes the software engineering guys are right. Considering Eric's initial conditions, a CS degree generally takes about 4 years in the United States, so if you wanted, you could say that Stardew Valley really took about 8 years to complete, since without those first 4 years, then he would not have the knowledge needed to make the game. So if it's your dream to make a game like Stardew Valley, and are starting from little to no skill in these areas, you should not hold yourself to the standard of something like Stardew Valley's development cycle, even though it's a reasonably scoped solo project for someone like Eric. It takes a long time for everyone to develop these skills, so when you're on your own journey and see that some game was made in a year or two, don't forget to consider all the effort that went in before its conception. But Acerola, what about Lethal Company? It's true, Lethal Company was made entirely by someone born in the 2000s. Zeekers. Not much is known about Lethal Company's development cycle yet, but considering Zeekers' previous game, It Steals, released in 2020, and Lethal Company released in 2023, you could assume a 3-year development time. Lethal Company is very smart because it has intentionally low standards for its presentation and functionality because that's what the design asks for. I think that more people should design for less work rather than the other way around. These low standards enable the game to be 3D, which is decently rare for indie games for reasons you might not have thought about. It's very true that pixel art and illustration are difficult and time-consuming to learn in their own right, but medium to high-fidelity 3D art is considerably more involved. You've got the sculpt, the low poly, the texture mapping, the texturing, the rigging, and the animating. Each of these tasks is usually an entirely different job at a studio, so a lot of man-hours can be dedicated to just one asset. If you're a solo developer and your game is aesthetically diverse by design, you could be spending many months on modeling alone. This is why asset packs are so valuable and widely used. It saves more time than you could possibly imagine. Lethal Company subverts this time sink by doing the bare minimum for its assets, which enables much of the game's comedy. People will sometimes handwave Lethal Company as lazy, but if it tried any harder, it would be a far less entertaining game. Mechanically, Lethal Company is definitely not simple on account of it being multiplayer. Never believe what any programmer trying to be cool says. Multiplayer stuff is really the devil. Overall, I would say that if someone wanted to make Lethal Company, they'd probably need a good deal of programming and game design experience, with bare minimum working knowledge of 3D asset pipelines and simple music skills. I'm pretty sure Lethal Company uses stock sound effects, and the story draws pretty heavily from SCP. Like Eric, Zeekers gained these skills over a larger period of time than 3 years. He started out making Roblox horror games, with his first release in 2015 and another in 2016. 4 years later, he moved away from Roblox and released a Unity horror game in 2020, It Steals, which if you notice, looks suspiciously a lot like Lethal Company. So if I had to guess, the next 3 years were mostly spent on learning and developing the multiplayer systems of Lethal Company and combining it with the visuals of It Steals. In the macroscope, Lethal Company has a collective 8 years of personal development poured into it. Just like Stardew makes something like Lethal Company, it makes a lot of sense to make a lower scope, single player version of it first, because even that could take you years. At this point, either you haven't cared about anything I've said, or you're drafting a comment right now that's like, wow, this really demotivated me. I never want to make a video game now. Don't worry, because I'm just like you. Contrary to popular belief, you do not need to make a whole game by yourself to be a game developer. As I've demonstrated, it takes a lot of time to develop the skills to make the kinds of games that people would generally want to make, and then it takes even longer to actually make that game. It's become quite clear why solo productions like Stardew Valley and Lethal Company are so rare, because how many people have you met that are willing to work 10+ hours a day for 4 years straight on the same project? It's truly an unreasonable expectation to cover all the bases yourself in an industry as multidisciplinary as game development, and anyone that does produce a successful commercial game all on their own deserves the highest of praises. If you are someone that is daunted by this mountain of work, then that's like totally normal and reasonable. So my suggestion for you is to find what you like and specialize instead of forcing yourself to take it on all at once. All of these skills provide value in game development one way or another, and it's when our skills come together that games can be made. The secret is that once you learn one thing, you're usually going to learn new things even faster, because learning is a skill just like everything else. I am often asked when I am going to make a game, and my answer is not anytime soon. I just like graphics programming too much, and so I would rather continue making graphics tech demos. Admittedly, I am lacking in a lot of needed skills at the moment to meet my own personal standards. While I could confidently solve any engineering problem given my programming experience, I'm not the best writer or game designer. My art skills are pretty rusty, as I have not painted in years, and I'm not very proficient with 3D software, as my job is to make the 3D software, not use it. I do have a working knowledge of sound design, and this year I started working on my music skills. I've been practicing piano for 7 months now. I've been thinking about a spiritual successor to From Dust a lot lately, so if someone was holding a gun to my head, I guess that's what I would make. But after everything I've said in this video, I'd probably just tell you to shoot me. As usual, a huge thank you to all my current patrons. Also, I'll be at SIGGRAPH in Denver this month thanks to Nvidia flying me out. So if you're around, come say hi. Anyways, that's all from me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.
Yesterday
when you know. This is when you know who your real friends are.
Taken out with the trash, swimming through the gutter, swimming through the gutter, swallowed up by the city, by the city, by the city. Humans the size of rats, opportunity cracks. Opportunity studies. It only takes a minute, and it takes it, and it takes it, and it takes it, and it takes it.
Come here a minute. Oh, can I go? Can I just go, please?
Not yet. It's okay. This'll just make you sleep, is all.
What?
Jessica Hyde? Who's she? Where is Jessica Hyde?
Is she a customer? Because if she's a customer, I can find her. I can find her on the.
Where is Jessica Hyde?
I'm thinking so hard. I really am. I just don't know that name.
Oh no. It's just gas. You've got to sleep. Don't put the gas away yet. my mate's gonna ask you a question.
Where is Jessica Hyde?
Scalpel. Scalpel. God. More God. More God. More God. More God.